Welcome back to another episode of Upon Request. If you're watching visually, you can tell that I'm here by my lonesome, Mikel Lejean. Don't have my co hosts here, Eric and Gato. I thought to do a special edition response in the wild kind of vibe for the TikTok ban. I honestly don't really care that much about the TikTok ban as a thing, but I thought that the implications and the overall messaging of what it means were really important to talk to or speak about. So here we are. We're going to try to do this like little 30-minute, super fast, uh, out the door within the next few days so that it's actually timely, which is a grand departure from the core nature of Upon Request as a podcast, which is that we do not like to be responsive to current events. We really try to cover topics that the conversations that we have are about systems and systems analysis and really about things that can come back up as important reflections later on. So I don't know if TikTok ban necessarily goes under that as a conversation. And also by the time we talk about it and get it out in our production timeline, it might just be completely irrelevant. So here we are. So thank you for joining us for this like special, hopefully not one-time event in terms of doing things like this more often, but hopefully one-time event in terms of draconian McCarthy era laws. So yeah, TikTok ban. It is top of mind for a lot of people, especially the younger generation who are interacting with TikTok at a higher level. It's probably one of the only platforms that has seen a growth tech wise in the past few years, while, you know, platforms like Facebook or X have actually seen a pretty steep decline in the past few years. So I think for me, one of the reflection points is just straight up, this is absurd. There are so many things that 76 members of Senate could come together and vote on right now that would help so many people. And yet, here we are talking about a ban on a platform that is just, it just feels so stupid. Um, and I think that's a little bit of the hesitancy of coming on here and doing this recording is why does this even matter? And it's not that it matters to the grand majority of us because it really doesn't, but it does matter when you think about what's going on more broadly. What's the backdrop of all this that's happening, and what is this TikTok ban actually trying to do? So let's jump into it. First of all, it's ridiculous that the Biden administration is good to sign off on this TikTok ban and then immediately reach out to TikTok creators and stay on the TikTok platform in order to basically get young people out to vote for their campaign this fall. Like, just what are we talking about here? um, and some things that I've noticed that are really interesting, and this is more from the TikTok side, is that I don't know if y'all have interacted with this as much or have seen this, but I've seen that there's way more of this like commerce TikTok shop thing that has been happening since the last congressional hearing. And I think that this is probably some sort of corporate business restructuring tactic to try to curtail or kind of sidestep some of the incoming rules and regulations. I don't know how that might pan out. I have not read the policy or the law or all the machinations of that bill. If you couldn't tell from my voice, you can probably tell from my visual overall demeanor that this is just exhausting. It's exhausting to even think about. But, aside from reading the specifics of any bill, it really is interesting to me that TikTok has kind of flown so close to becoming almost an e-commerce platform. And I wonder if that shift might help it, set up for sidestepping any type of rules or regulations the same way that many other corporations do these types of restructurings when there's some type of regulation coming down the pike that is their core business. So we can see either an e-commerce platform. It looks like they're trying to compete with Instagram with like a new platform. So I think that the business behind TikTok and the Singaporean part of the business is probably trying to figure out a few different ways to sidestep the US regulation. And I'm sure that the US regulation did not think very far about all the ways that TikTok could like reimagine itself to fit into like this new era of TikTok being banned by the congressional government unless they sell off significant portions of its business. Um so that's like one thing that I've been thinking about and wondering of like, you know, these are smart folks, I think, at TikTok. They probably have a pretty good legal team because they've been navigating this for a while and somehow have come out unscathed, relatively unscathed. They're the central point of focus for a collectively bipartisan move to basically fight against China and the Red Scare. So it'll be interesting to see how that maneuvers itself. I think there is also implications for um, the messaging coming down in November of 2024, where we see more of a xenophobic sort of communication. And so, what do I mean by xenophobic? It is the, you know, similar to xenophobia and Islamophobia, it is the phobia of China as a state. And this has very much been a part of the US political agenda. It cuts across party lines. Everyone is scared of, hates, and wants to do something against China. This feels like one of those things to help try to, uh, in a way, across party lines and in a bipartisan way, try to refocus energy of a pretty disgruntled voter base into there's this other big state actor that's more scary and more of a behemoth, and every American should be scared of them. Um, this is also kind of coming up against my overall anger, which is that there's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter who do all of the things that are being talked about in this bill of like spying on their citizens, using their profiles to, you know, feed them certain types of messaging to dismantle democracy. We have literally a platform in Twitter or X now. No, it's Twitter. I'm going to keep on calling it Twitter. I don't care. Um, that limits certain type of speech if it's too liberal or woke. Facebook has curtailed political engagement as like a way to, you know, not take responsibility for the right wing trolling and internet base that they have there. So all of this just feels really dumb, quite honestly. And there's so many other things to be focusing on. I think the last thing that I'd say is, you know, like there was an era where Cambridge Analytica was in the news, and there was a pretty central focus on Cambridge Analytica. In Trinidad, we were used as a testing ground of a predecessor to Cambridge Analytica that messed up our political elections and created a lot of racial division. And I don't think Cambridge Analytica was ever held to the level of accountability that TikTok is here. So, and I definitely don't think Facebook was. And Facebook was very closely connected to Cambridge Analytica and the 2016 election. So, um, I think all of that just shows that there is a real hypocrisy here, and this is really about political gaming. I think it's a real attempt to try to get, um, yeah, like a base of voters that don't know any better to think differently about the state of the U.S. government. Um, and I think all this is happening in this much larger backdrop of students, youth revolting against the system as it is. And I think that's the important piece here. This isn't about, oh, wow, like TikTok is really just the main source of all of our pain and woes. It's like kind of this era of these politicians actually have no idea what's going on and they have no idea what to do. They're scrambling and they're trying to do anything in their power that looks aesthetically like they're solving some problem that people can see. But what's happened is that a lot of voters are not happy with the aesthetics of this situation. hell, they're kind of going beyond the aesthetics. They're like, not only are we going to talk about the aesthetics of what's happening in this country, how bad it looks for the general working class person, how it looks for folks that are marginalized, like we're going to actually go at the systems and the root causes of what's going on. And we're seeing it with these like student protests right now. NYU, Columbia, I just saw that George Washington University, USC, a bunch of colleges are starting up these encampments, which are really reminiscent of the anti-war movement during Vietnam. And at that era, I think the two things that are really related here is that there is a crumbling of the empire, and it's preceding some big shift in how the people respond to what they're feeling and the way that the government is going to respond in the future. And I think I worry a little bit about what is the neoliberalism 2.0 that's going to take place. What are the new rules and laws that are going to try to circumvent the energy of this moment? And I'm really hoping for there to be kind of a collective direction that takes heed of what's happened in the 60s and 70s and ultimately the 80s and tries to make some kind of better system. So, yeah, it's just feels like there's a lot going on right now, and all of it adds up. And TikTok is kind of the tip of the iceberg. But I don't want to get away from this point of these politicians are actually super dumb. I think we've put too much confidence and faith in their ability to actually be smart or tactical or strategic. And really and truly, they don't have much of a strategy right now. I think a lot of them are taking their cues from a donor base or an influence, a sphere of influence that is in their strategic corner, and it's not panning out the way that they thought. Um, so, what does that leave us? I think we've got a really good opportunity right now where people all across the country are starting to connect the dots. I think from people talking about how stupid it is that we can get so much aligned voting so swiftly for billions of dollars to go to war, for a ban on a social media platform that's mostly used by young 19 and 20 year olds, to the ways in which the responses to the university encampments are just so reminiscent of a time when the US government like hated its students and their radical nature, that it's a really good time to just start talking about these really big concepts and themes with people. I think for the first time in a long time, this idea that capitalism is bad is just like a very salient message. I feel like before you'd have to jump through many hoops for most people, but I think people can see like, man, this thing is just not working out. Before we used to be able to send our problems all around the globe, and then at least here in the US we would benefit. We'd have a house and a car, and we'd also have those bases all over the world where our military were doing their bidding. And that's a fucked up system, and it's super messed up for sure. But that veil is not even there anymore. I don't think that that veil exists for people. I think it's dropped and it's fallen off years ago. Now we're watching young people be like, man, so I go to school every day. They tell me that genocide is bad. And then the moment that I do anything about the genocide that's happening right now, it's not the right thing. Well, that seems out of whack. That's literally what happened at Columbia. That's quite literally what happened. This person was taking studies on genocide, was identifying the situation that was unfolding in Palestine, and was looking at that and being like, "That's genocide. We should do something about it." And then the university is like, "Just kidding. You weren't supposed to learn that. Your takeaway was supposed to be how to identify it, but not how to do anything about it." Um, so yeah, I think that this veil is just like completely slipping. The mask is slipping. It definitely is. And this is our moment. Like I don't know how to say it any other way. This is the moment for us to galvanize our energy around, yes, we've finally gotten a bunch of people to care about this. Now where do we go? How do we finally take back some hope of democracy in this messed up world? Um and it's all connected. It's really just all so connected, so deeply interwoven. And I've seen so many great platforms and communications about all these different concepts that were definitely reported on. Last year there was reporting from The Intercept about the role of the Reagan administration in the overall student debt crisis. Now we're seeing people connecting the role of, the pushback of universities because of their donors and their highly concentrated, wealthy donors being able to have that much power on university campuses to repress students that are just showing up to like get their education and do something better for the world. The connection between the Reagan administration wanting to stop all of the energy on these college campuses that were advocating against the war in Vietnam, that were basically just making it impossible for elected officials, political figureheads, and the US government to continue to just lie to the American people. And they had catalyzed so much energy, and it was making it impossible for them to just continue this stupid, unrelenting war against the Viet Cong and the Vietnamese people. And um, because of that, uh, that basically that like, oh, now kids should have to take out loans to pay for their education, and those loans they're basically going to pay back as they earn income from their fields, right? That was something that was crafted as a way to subdue resentment and to stop the rise of a proletariat against the bourgeoisie and the petite bourgeoisie. So much of this system is about a bunch of capitalists against the rise of communism. That's all it has been. That's all it ever has been. That's all it ever really will be. From one side is like they're so fearful of any other economic system taking hold that the cost to them of lives, the cost to them of sending money to foreign countries that don't really align from like a humanity perspective, but align from like a keeping the economic system flowing, is worth more to them than just like the general overall healthy well-being of people. And this the crux of this like TikTok ban is just like such an insidious and small example of just how weak they feel in every aspect of life. Like you feel so weak and infinitesimal because of this social media app that like in the grand scheme of things, if like that is what is crumbling like people's affinity for the capitalist system, like is it really that good of a system? Like if TikTok and a bunch of kids dancing on TikTok and a few little like political and grassroots kind of commentary about things that are going on in the world is enough to make the American system look like absolute shit, is it really that good of a system? And I think that that is like fundamentally my realist frustration right now is that um instead of trying to do something that would actually fundamentally shift people's relationship to the system that they're in, they're like doubling down on just like creating a system that is more harmful. It's like, the messaging that's coming out from the Hill right now, especially from the Republican speaker. I don't really care about the political divide because I'll get into this a little bit more later, but there's really no difference between the way that the Democrats and the Republicans are operating right now. But that Republican leader is talking about these Jewish students that feel unsafe on campus. And so the only responsible thing to do is to make another group of students feel unsafe at the hands of the state. Like, it just doesn't click, right? Like, even if I believed that argument, the initial thing of like, Jewish students feeling unsafe because of what's happening on the campuses, which I don't agree with. I just fundamentally don't agree with. I think that if they feel unsafe, it is from them not listening to like what the people that are in camping are saying. Like those folks are against genocide. I don't know how you feel unsafe with the idea of stopping genocide. I feel like stopping genocide would make you feel more safe because you're trying to stop the the mindless killing of people and saying that like that is an okay thing to replicate in the world, right? So if you stop it there, you kind of stop it everywhere. That's the hope. That aside, even just this fundamental thing of like, oh, well, one group of people feels unsafe, so let's send in the National Guard, the police force, and all these like really repressive systems and tools of the system to just like make other people feel less safe. And quite specifically show that to the world so that other people who look like those folks feel unsafe. Right? Now black students are probably being like, so they're going to call the cops to my campus if anyone is in an encampment, regardless of if I show up, I'm unsafe. Muslim students, regardless of if you're there, you're going to feel unsafe because now you're bringing a figure and a system, a police force, an actor that has brutalized your community since gosh knows when, to the place that you thought that you had safety because you were just trying to learn and showcase what democracy could look like. What does a democratically involved participant in this system of democracy look like? And this is the showcase that we're getting. So, for me it's all around just so stupid and misaligned. And I'm just like really happy that these students are digging their heels in and are saying enough is enough and are bringing our attention back to the center of this, which is that there's people in Palestine that are being murdered in levels that we cannot even comprehend. And the folks that were tracking those numbers are likely dead in the hundreds and thousands. So whatever numbers we have are probably gravely undercounted. That's fundamentally what's at the crux of this. People are broken because this system is showing us how horrible it can be. And we're talking about a ban on a social media platform. I've been sitting all week with just the juxtaposition of that. And we've been doing this all season of covering these episodes because what we're seeing and what we're feeling are two different things. The response to just people being at the highest level of inhumanity that our generation has seen since maybe Iraq, Afghanistan, since we heard about Darfur. Like these are moments in time where we've seen this at some a certain scale, and we've been told, through high school, through college, that we have so much hope that a new generation will bring new learnings and lessons, and maybe we won't get to that place. And it's really heartbreaking to watch the burden that we're putting on young people, on students, to solve a thing that's totally solvable. If a bunch of adults would grow a fucking spine, would grow a backbone, and deal with the real problems at hand. What the Democrats and the Republicans are doing are more aligned than at any point in history. They're more aligned with right-wing corporate agendas like the Heritage Foundation, by and large, than they are divergent. There's some differences, sure. They care about climate change, and they don't. Okay. But materially, what does that mean for the everyday person? They told us that under a Trump administration we would see more authoritarianism, we'd be more threatened with our lives, immigration would be way worse. And here we are. I'm living in a city where they deployed the National Guard in the subways under a Democratic governor with a shitty but stated Democratic mayor. There's more cops in the subway than I've ever seen in my life. Playing fucking Candy Crush or whatever this shit is. Playing Snake, I don't know. They're maybe not cool enough to play Candy Crush. They're probably still in the Snake era. I hope they all have Nokias. Actually, a Nokia would be a blessing for those fucking idiots. But that's like happening right now. And you're sending the National Guard, you're threatening to send the National Guard against fucking 19-year-olds. Grow a goddamn spine. We're getting to a dangerous era where I think we're going really, really far back. You know? And I think that this kind of started a little bit with Trump. I think we were kind of leaning towards it at certain points. There's been an ebb and a flow. And I guess maybe the veneer, the general aesthetic of it has been better. But the reality is we're going back really far. And now we're in an era where, tech companies like Facebook, like Google, maybe like Twitter, are aligning themselves with the military industrial complex in the same way that General Electric in the 50s, Honeywell, Westinghouse, all these like household names that made all the appliances that were in your home were also making every part of the military industrial complex, from the jet propellers to the navigation system to the cooling unit inside of the jets, whatever it was. They were all up in there. And I think that what we're seeing is like a new era of the dominant industries seeing that there's only so long that you can keep the consumers happy until the consumers start questioning, why do the prices of things keep on going up? And the only stable thing to really rely on at that point is this system of the war machine, because the war machine consistently helps the economy rise and rise and rise. I worry about that. I really do. I really worry that this is kind of the crux of inevitability. And to counter and assuage my overall pessimism and negativity, I will tell you that this is the most power that we've ever had. This is the time where you can say capitalism, and a vaster majority of people now than maybe 10 years ago will have a negative response to that word. You can say to a group of young people, student loans are stupid, and they by and large agree. I think we're in a moment where it takes a lot less time to connect the dots on way bigger issues than it ever has been. And for those of us with the ability to, I would say we've got to harness this moment. We've got to communicate effectively, but we've got to communicate with our heart. We've got to communicate to the people that it feels hard to communicate to. We've got to find something within us that helps us show up in this moment to end this once and for all. It starts with the TikTok ban, and I think it ends with the end of this shitty system. I don't know what is going to be the thing that's going to finally break it all for people. I thought it would have been another self-immolation. That didn't happen. You'd think that a human setting themselves on fire would be the thing that gets us over the edge. It hasn't. You would think that it would be the fact that, a bunch of people just went through a pandemic. The job market, it's worst it's ever been. And people are struggling at such a high level that they would see the shit ain't working for us. But maybe, just maybe, a fucking TikTok ban might be the thing. I don't know. So, that's where I'll end it. Thanks for going along on this really windy road, this monologue, this rage rant with me. I hope I didn't scare y'all. But most of all, I hope you're inspired to keep on going. For everyone that keeps on showing up, keeps on listening to this podcast, that keeps on getting out in the streets, that keeps on looking for a political home, I hope you know that you are truly doing the work. And you got to. Listening to the podcast isn't doing the work, by the way. I didn't mean to include that. I was just thanking you for listening to the podcast. Yeah. I think we can figure this out. And the last thing I'll say is fuck Elon Musk, dude. That guy sucks. He just laid off a bunch of Tesla workers not too long ago. This guy was trying to quote Marx when he was with Grimes. Bro didn't that. Come on, let's keep it a buck. Let's real quick. Listen, real quick. This is for you. Elon Musk ain't shit. My dude been grifting since day one. I don't believe a goddamn word he says. And when he was quoting Marx and manipulating the words of Marx to rationalize his completely fucked up capitalist bullshit ass business, he was grifting, y'all. He was grifting. You got a bunch of tech bros that were like so close, but then hit the wall. You know when you're like so close, and you just like, no, it's not that you hit the wall. So you turn, you take a turn right at the last minute. You got a bunch of tech bros that were like, they were on the verge of understanding some shit. They're like, man, it's so messed up that this happens. It's so messed up that this happens. It's so messed up that this happens. Let's create the Hyperloop. What? Ugh. You know, like it just enrages me. It enrages me. We gotta watch out for these grifters. What's that? What's her name? Candace? I don't know her last name. She grifted too. All kinfolk ain't skinfolk. Watch out. Why is you still listen to Yeezy? You still mess with Yeezy? Let me tell you something. The fact that everyone has overlooked the fact that he has Milo Yiannopoulos, I don't know Greek, still on his team, head chief of staff, whatever that means. That is problematic, y'all. It's problematic. I just can't. Just remember, our ability to let that shit slide makes it acceptable for all these bigger things to go on, right? So I know Yeezy makes some good music sometimes. He makes some good beats. Don't get me wrong. He makes some good beats. But if that's the difference between us holding a hard line on anti-Semitism and stupid black capitalism running amok, it's a line we got to break, you know? It's a line we got to break. I'm sorry. But anyway, that was my rant for today. We went over 30 minutes. I tried really hard, y'all, but we didn't quite make it. Thanks for listening to another episode of Upon Request. Sometimes we got to rant our way so we don't completely break down and cry. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Tell us if you want more like this. Tell us if there's other things that pop up. Please communicate to us. You know, there was an era where y'all would message us and comment, and that's kind of gone down a little bit. Don't let it decline anymore. Communicate. Talk to us. We want to hear from you. We don't want to only just be talking. Hopefully next time you'll be seeing me with Eric and Kato. There's a few more episodes lined up, so really excited to get that out this season. And yeah, thanks again, y'all. Have a good one. Stay safe. All love. Find your political home. Peace.